I really hate the construct of foreplay and sex. I want to eradicate that from our thinking. The things we do for foreplay are equally as pleasurable as intercourse. The number one takeaway is
welcome to wellness, your ultimate guide to unlocking your full human potential through biohacking. I'm your host, ASHLEYDEELEY. I'm a certified sports nutrition coach, former personal trainer, and Pilates instructor, and I have a degree in kinesiology. My goal with the aim of this podcast is to help you improve and elevate the quality of your life. When you leave a review, it makes a positive difference. Whether you're listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube, or listening on any other streaming app, it helps listeners just like you find this hidden health information faster. As a clean beauty coach, I'm a fan of products that use tallow because tallow can help you clear up acne, eczema, dry skin, and give you that hydrating, nourishing feeling that you're looking for in an anti-aging solution skincare. But not all tallow is created equal. Sacred Tallow is the only company that I've found that uses grass-fed, grass-finished tallow with a wet rendering method made with love. Never in my life have I used a face cream that feels quite as luxurious as this one. Visit sacredtallow.com/ASHLEYDEELEY. That's sacredtallow.com/ASHLEYDEELEY. If you need an immune booster, stress reducer, or sharper focused, you need functional mushrooms. I take Fantastic Fungi because this has lion's mane, bacopa, and ginkgo. Studies show lion's mane extract can actually improve growth cone size in hippocampal neurons, the memory center of your brain. Lion's mane can help your brain grow stronger, think sharper, and age slower. Fantastic Fungi uses dual extracted USDA organic mushroom tinctures for maximum potency and fast absorption. Visit fantasticfungi.com/ASHLEYDEELEY. That's fantasticfungi.com/ASHLEYDEELEY. If you think great sex has an expiration date, Susan Bratton is here to prove you wrong. Today's guest is Susan Bratton, the world-renowned intimacy expert to millions. If you've ever felt confused, dismissed, or quietly worried about what's happening to your body and your sex life as you age, this episode is for you. Susan is a best-selling author, award-winning speaker, and entrepreneur who spent decades exposing the uncomfortable truth. Most people are never taught how sex actually works. The cost of that silence is unnecessary pain, loss of pleasure, and intimacy, which slowly fades away. In this unfiltered episode, Susan talks about what no one is warning us about, how vaginal atrophy quietly creeps in, why so many women are told this is just a normal part of aging, and how that message robs women of comfort, confidence, and desire. She breaks down what's really happening in the body, what doesn't work, and what practical steps you can take to keep vaginal health strong and enjoy deeply satisfying sex well beyond 60. If you've ever thought your best sex was behind you, felt disconnected from your body or partner, or believed pleasure has an expiration date, this episode will challenge everything you've been told about sex, desire, and intimacy. Consider this your wake-up call. You don't lose your sex life with age. You lose it when no one tells you how to protect it. As a side note, I was experiencing technical difficulties during this interview today, so while I won't be on camera, Susan will. Susan, welcome to the show.
Ashley. I'm super psyched to be here because I love to talk all things wellness. I've been listening to a few of your episodes before coming on your show. Thank you so much for inviting me. We have such a good values match. We're so aligned in our approach to living. There were a couple of things that I wanted to tell you that I've been working on lately that might be of interest to you.
Yes, let's start there. Tell me.
So the things that I've been really interested in lately have been something called orgasmic activation. I've also been thinking a lot about ageless sexuality and why fighting for your sex life is a real boon to your health, your longevity, and your happiness. That's a really interesting thing to talk about because I think a lot of people feel like there's this paradigm that says when you're in your 20s and your 30s, that's your good sex life. Women hit their peak in their 30s or some crap like that. At 64, I'm having the best sex of my life. I don't expect it to get worse. I think it's going to keep getting better and better as it has for the last 4 decades. The thing that I really want to kind of put out there with regard to wellness and sexuality. No matter where you are right now in your sex life, you tuned into this segment because you know in some way that this is an important aspect of your happiness and your humanity. I promise you, it will keep getting better if you continue putting your attention and intention on making your sex life great. And that's all sex is learned skills. And that's why you can keep getting better at it, because you can keep incrementing your knowledge. So I wanted to just kind of get those things out there because I think it's so important to give people encouragement, because in the grand scheme of things, if I took 100 people and I said, how many of you care about your sex life? Only 15% of people would. It's the same amount of people who are like, I care about my health and I'm going to focus on it. I'm going to watch what I eat. I'm going to do my exercise. I'm going to get my sleep. I'm going to use my clean beauty products. I'm going to do all the things you talk about on your show. And that's what I'm hoping to do, is really give people a lot of opportunity to know what kinds of things are available to them to do and to learn. And so I'm ready to go wherever you want to go, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. And that's so astonishingly sad that only 15% of people care about their sex lives. Where I want to start, Susan, is something I've heard you mention before, and I've only heard you mention this. Tell me, what is a flaccid vulva?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So first thing is that basically what it means is that you're not getting enough blood flow to your genital system. And the genital system works on blood flow. When you don't get enough blood flow, you can't get what's called engorgement. Engorgement, or tumescence, that's another word, or erectile function, is vital for the female body. It is as vital for the female body as it is for the male body. We think about erectile function as being a masculine construct, but that's only because female health has been marginalized in our culture to date, although there are great strides being made to change that now. One of the things that we think about is, okay, a guy who can't get a hard on, can't get an erection, that's a problem. If he's married to a woman and they've been eating the same food that she's been cooking and basically living the same lifestyle, she has erectile dysfunction just as badly as he does. The biggest issue is that he's got an outie and we've got an innie. You took a penis and you thought about it like a banana. Half of the banana sticks out of a male body and half of that banana goes down and in toward his testicles. There is equally as much tissue that is what I call the buried shaft. If you think about that whole tissue as a banana and you peeled the skin off, what's left inside is the fruit. The fruit is the erectile tissue. The entire penis is basically erectile spongy tissue that fills with blood, and it has 3 chambers. The female genital system, the vagina, the vulva, the urethra, all of the urogenital complex, all of our parts, we have 3 erectile tissue systems too. The first one is our clitoral body, our clitoral structure, the tip, the glands, the shaft, the arms, the legs. That's one. The second one is our urethral sponge, which is very much the homologous, they call it, part to the corpus spongiosum in the penis. It's a long, spongy tissue that surrounds the urethral canal. Some people call it the G-spot, but it's not a spot. It's a big mass of tissue. And then the third piece, the third chamber, if you will, is called the perineal sponge. And that's at the bottom of the vagina, underneath the vagina, between the vagina and the rectum. The clitoral legs actually are under the labia, the outer labia, the labia majora, the big labia, which is where the pubic hair is on each side of the vulva. They need to get puffed up. All those parts need to get puffed up. The thing is, the male body has something called fast-acting hemodynamics. It gets a quick erection. Within a minute or two, a man can achieve an erection. But a woman, her erectile function takes about 20 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on how frequently she accesses her arousal, how comfortable she is with her partner, how much stimulation she's getting, how good her blood flow is to her pelvic bowl. what her nitric oxide levels are, how thick and kind of pillowy that tissue is based on her estrogen volumes. They decline over time. So vaginal estrogen is a really important part of helping not just your vagina, but also your urethra stay very full and plush so that it's thicker, so that it can hold more of that blood flow, that engorgement, so that it can have more resiliency. But what it also means, and this is really where it goes to the pleasure part. My girlfriend, Dr. Nan Wise, who is a sexual neuroscientist, her latest book is called Why Good Sex Matters. Between the two of us, we have a laundry list as long as Santa's list about why fighting for your sex life is so important. And what I like to do is I like to empower women to understand what matriarchal arousal patterns and libido patterns look like compared to patriarchal, which is what we all think we're supposed to act and be and respond like men when our parts are totally different and respond differently. What is interesting about the blood flow to the genital and getting the engorgement, all of the vulva, vagina, urethra, all those components plumped up, fluffed up with blood, is that when it's flaccid, it has a very, very small surface area, like a flaccid penis. When it's engorged, it has a much bigger surface area. And when it has a bigger surface area, what it does is send more signals to the brain so that you feel more pleasure. And what Dr. Nan did was she worked with two very famous researchers, almost as famous as Masters and Johnson, Barry Komisaruk and Dr. Beverly Whipple. She was a lab assistant, and she put people into an MRI machine and had their partners there with them, stimulating different parts of their body. And what Dr. Wise discovered is up in your brain, basically at the top of your head, is your sensory cortex. When different parts of your vulva, vagina, urethra, the urogenital system, often I use the word yoni, Y-O-N-I. It's a tantric lovemaking word that has kind of like a holistic, comprehensive, it's kind of like all the parts, everything, not just the clitoris or the vagina, which is what so much of patriarchal sex focuses on, but on everything. When you touch all those different areas, when you touch the clitoral tip, the clitoral shaft, the clitoral hood, the mons venus, which is above that whole area, the outer labia, the inner labia, the vestibule, the entrance to the vagina, the fourchette where the labia come down at the bottom near the perineal area, inside the vagina, the urethral sponge or G area, the perineal sponge, your breasts, your nipples, your lips, your mouth, your tongue. You're sending signals to different parts of your brain being your biggest sex organ, because it's actually saying to you, oh, I feel that. Oh, that feels good. Oh, that feels good. Oh, that feels good. And what's interesting is that the more locations that you pleasure, the more signals are sent to your brain, the more oxygenation and blood flow, generating more experience of pleasure. And I'll close by saying that what Nan also discovered, because this is a mind-body situation, is that if you even imagined some of those parts were being touched, it lit up those places in the brain.
Yeah.
Which is what has led me to my concept of orgasmic activation and orgasmic cross-training. So we can get all that stuff lit up with pleasure.
Such a good explanation. I have so many follow-up questions.
Great.
But I love that just thinking about sex and pleasure can help stimulate those parts of your brain, get your blood flowing. It's kind of like when you think about something tart like a lemon, your tongue has that part of your brain light up.
Yes.
Susan, you mentioned that it can take 20 to 30 minutes for a woman to feel fully aroused. Why does it take so long, and how can we get closer to that 20 minutes instead of 30?
Okay. So number one, why do you want to rush, Ash? Why do you want to go faster? Why? Because you think that you need to be ready when your partner is? Because you think that his erection is dictating the pace? Because you think that a quickie is good? rather than long, slow, pleasurable lovemaking? Because you think that there's some reason why it's not good enough to be 20 or 30 minutes? This is the pattern that we need to break, that we're pushing ourselves to have some response that isn't what our body's natural response is. Now that I'm an old fart, an old sexy fart, really only jokingly call myself that. I could outwork, outrun, outlift, outpace almost anybody 20 years younger than myself because I get great sleep, I exercise every day, I eat and cook my own organic foods. I'm living that life, that healthy wellness life that you're so good about talking about. But one of the things that I've really come to in my sexual maturation is that I have to slow down and let my body take the time she needs every time I make love. I consider it now a non-negotiable. It's like no wine before it's time. I really feel like when I start to get impatient with myself, it's taking me a while. I'm not quite there. I'm not really into it yet. We've learned now about responsive desire versus spontaneous desire because everything in the sexuality world is a bell curve. Generally, the male body gets, they wake up, they have nocturnal erections when they're healthy. They wake up with morning wood. They got a big bolus of testosterone in the morning. They're hornier. They're more goal oriented. They're more oriented toward penetration. But the female body, I really hate the construct of foreplay and sex. I want to eradicate that from our thinking because foreplay is as important. The things we do for foreplay, kissing, full body touch, words of adoration, breast pleasuring, oral pleasuring, manual genital pleasuring are equally as orgasmic and pleasurable as intercourse. They're all good. So why would you rush through or be frustrated with yourself that your human body, like my human body, like female human bodies, just takes that long because we've got all those nooks and crannies we've got to get that blood flow to. Add to that, we're estrogen dominant instead of testosterone dominant, which means we are multitaskers. We've got our head thinking about a lot of things, our big head, not our little head. And because we have a little head too. What's interesting about that is that one of the beautiful things about having a partner who has more spontaneous desire is that they can bring that turn on to us and help us respond to their spontaneous desire stimuli so that we can slowly warm up and match their ardor. But if we push ourselves, it takes us longer. I'm from Pennsylvania originally. I grew up kind of out near the Amish country, and they have this funny little saying, the hurrier I go, the behinder I get. And I always thought that was so cute because that's what it is when you rush yourself for sex. When you try and be like, oh, I'm so frustrated. I'm not really there yet, but look, I'm just going to do it. Do you know how many times women have been penetrated before we're aroused? Like mostly all the time. Maybe there's some hot lover that we're really turned on for and we're just like ready to ravish them. And we've already been thinking about having sex with them and we're already engorged and we're already turned on. But generally, we need our partners to really help allow us to get out of our head and into our body, to get relaxed so we can begin to climb our arousal ladder, to help us get all the full body touch and stimulation and encouragement and adoration, the verbal appreciation that we need to relax. Because in the animal kingdom of the Homo sapien, a female-bodied person is the prey. We have to deal with so much shit as women. Predatory men, sexual abuse, trauma, shame, and all this stuff. And then we put pressure on ourselves because we're not aroused as fast as our male-bodied partners who never think about walking around unsafe. They're like oblivious to the stuff that we're dealing with. The number one takeaway is go easy on yourself. Take all the time you need. Be patient and expansive with yourself. Stand for yourself, your time frame, your pleasure, and your needs in every moment because they change all the time. You're on a 28-day cycle, even after menopause. We're different every day, tuning into what you need and asking for it and knowing there is nothing wrong with you is one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself for that ageless sexuality.
I love the way you said that.
Good.
Ageless sexuality. I want to know your thoughts on hormone replacement therapy.
I love it. I'm for it. I actively have been doing hormone replacement therapy since my 40s. You know, the Buck Institute for Longevity is doing a lot of research in the area of continued menstruation. Here's what I do. I use estrogen. I use a biased estrogen cream that I put inside my vagina. I use testosterone cream that I rub on my clitoris and my vulva. That's how I absorb my testosterone. I take progesterone orally. I also use Below vaginal estrogen serum, and I use it on my face, the back of my hands, my forearms, my décolletage, and my vagina. I just liberally just put that stuff on me because my skin needs estrogen too to assuage the wrinkles and desiccation of the atrophy of aging. So I really like it. I put the testosterone on my clitoris because I want my clitoris to stay meaty. I want my vulva to be plush and full of blood. So I also use a vaginal pump and clitoral pump every once in a while just to bring blood flow into those tissues and keep the capillaries from retracting and keep the blood carrying capacity of my genitals high, and to keep that tissue innervated with nerves, which can't be there unless there's blood supply. And then I also use FemiWave, which has now been renamed to GainesWave for her because their GainesWave for men is very, very popular. And that's an acoustic wave technology that I go and get every few years to regenerate new tissue. It's sexual regenerative therapy that allows my tissues to rebuild themselves. And then I also do my own endogenous stem cell IVs because I am working on regrowing my hair from COVID loss. It's really coming in nicely. I work on my skin. My eyesight's gotten better. And I've also been regrowing my ACL and MCL ligaments and tendons that I tore in a ski accident. I'm very oriented toward both keeping my tissues and systems youthful and using tools and therapies that help keep the atrophy at bay.
Susan, you mentioned the word, I feel maybe a little embarrassed. You said décolletage?
Décolletage. That's your chest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a French word. It just means the chest.
Oh.
Décolletage. You'll hear that a lot with estheticians. They use that word a lot. They'll do your facial and then they'll do your neck and they'll do your chest with things you're doing with facials.
Okay.
You know, if you're having like microdermabrasion or dermaplaning or, things like that when you go into an esthetician, décolletage.
Okay, got it. I did listen to one of the episodes that you did about biohacking and wellness for your vagina and stem cells. I actually had Dr. Gross on the show, so I was excited.
Oh, I love him. Yeah, he's the one who's been doing everything to help me regrow my ligaments and tendons.
For people who don't know, can you give us a bit of insight on the O shot, the P shot, and how do you biohack a vagina?
Yeah, sure. So the biohacking really starts with the estrogen replacement, adding testosterone. I really like the Below vaginal serum. And then I do the FemiWave, which is now called GainesWave for her. I do that every maybe 2 years or so. I go in for treatments, maybe 2.5 years, just depends. Because I also have to keep incontinence at bay. Even though I use vaginal estrogen, the pelvic musculature still does drop a bit as you age. And so you do have to kind of keep incontinence at bay. Since incontinence is the number one reason women have to leave their home and go into assisted living, I'm not doing that. That's just like not an option for me. I just moved my mom into assisted living. It's very nice there for her and she's doing better and it's okay. But I just want to die in my house. I don't want to go someplace else. I just want to stay vital and I want to die from an orgasm in my own bed. So, and I want to do that in about 40 years. I want to live to 100 at least. stem cells, PRP, O shot, P shot, exosomes, that whole piece of things. I still am very undecided about what the best things are. And here's how I like to break things down. I like to break things down by budget, mid-price, luxury. I've had 6 or 7 O shots, orgasm shots, which is also called a P shot for men, to my clitoral structure and to I had a little tear in the opening to my vagina, which is called the introital sphincter. It's the opening of your vagina is a round muscle. I had a little tear and it was always a little delicate. And it got more delicate as I got older. My girlfriend, Dr. Robyn Benson of Santa Fe Soul, has done, I think, all my P shots for me. And I started doing them in my mid 50s. And the first one I had done using PRP, which is platelet-rich plasma, which is Robyn takes a vial of my blood, she puts it in a centrifuge, she spins it down, she takes off the red and white blood cells, and she's left with something called a fibrin-rich matrix. And there's PRP, there's PFP, there's all kinds of different things people are doing with PRP now, but it's basically your own blood. It's the healing and growth factors, cytokines that call your stem cells to come in and repair tissue. And it's essentially an injection of your own reparation, regenerative healing from your own body through your blood that are concentrated and put into that spongy tissue of your clitoral body, your urethral sponge, your perineal sponge, into any tissue that's damaged. She can do it up inside to hold the urethral sling up better if you're having incontinence, all those kinds of things. She's also done like wing lifts, which are hyaluronic acid with PRP into the outer labia. That seems evanescent to me. It doesn't really last very long, so I wouldn't do it again, but I try a lot of stuff because I'm a biohacker. The first one that I had didn't do anything. She's like, well, you were probably pretty desiccated, so let's do another one. So I had a second one, and I was like, oh, yeah, I needed two. The first one wasn't enough. I needed to do it twice. Then I was like, well, that was so good. I want to do it again. So I did another one 6 or 8 months later. She's one of my best friends and I go see her all the time. So we're always monkeying around with stuff. So by the third one, I was like, oh, this is really good. I'm going to do this every year. So I had O shots on an annual basis for a number of years. And one of the things that I've noticed with PRP is because it's somewhat inflammatory, because it's calling to your body, this is a wound, come heal it, which is how you get the regenerative effect of regeneration, is that I would lose sensation. I would lose my orgasmic response for a few months. It takes about 90 days for PRP to have full effect. I really built my tissue up to the point where between the pumping, GainesWave for her, I feel like I'm not sure I would want more PRP anymore. At the same time, I really fell in love with stem cells and exosomes. And I think exosomes are great, but what I found to work the best for me, where I was like, Jesus, I need to wear my old glasses because my prescription's too strong for me now. My God, my hair's thicker now than it was when I was 30. I got more results from stem cells than I ever got from PRP. My skin damaged healed from COVID, which really ravaged my body. Jeff and I have been able to grow back my meniscus 20% and my ligaments, left and right knee, 16 and 20%, according to my
Wow.
last MRI. And we get MRIs every 6 months or so, literally growing my own ligaments back. I'm not going in and having a knee surgery that costs $200,000 and costs me $15,000 or $20,000 out of pocket. I'm literally spending $15,000 in growing my own ligaments back instead, no surgery. I have had such impressive results by using my own endogenous, which means they came from my body. I harvested my stem cells and they're banked at American Cell Technology. I found out about that from Dave Asprey. When I spoke at his biohacking conference, they had a booth there and they had like a show special. And I was like, I'm going to try this. I've been doing the PRP stuff and the exosome. I'm going to give the stem cell stuff a try. And this is what I do. And I had my stem cells harvested and then they culture them and they're bioidentical. They came from my body. And there's two schools of thoughts on stem cell kind of things. One is you can go to like Panama or even here in the US and you can have umbilical, and placental stem cells cultured, cleaned and cultured and injected into you from another human being's, like the leftovers of birth. Or you can have your own harvested and cultured and injected back into you. And I decided, because I'm in damn good shape So my reparation abilities are still going to be, even though I would have these young stem cells, from a placenta or something, I still have an old body doing the repair. And so I thought, I'm going to use my own DNA. I want to use my own stem cells. This is just what was right for me. Everybody makes different decisions. Some people argue, you need the young stem cells. They'll do a better job. But I'll tell you, the effects are demonstrable. You can see them on MRIs. You can see them in my eyesight prescriptions. You can see them in the follicular growth of my hair and the thickness. It's just incredible. So I have been very, very happy to have my own endogenous stem cell IV and injections. And Jeff drilled my own stem cells into my bones. If you go to betterlover.com and you look up stem cells, you'll see videos where Jeff wore my Ray-Ban Metas. You know those glasses that take video of whatever you're looking at? Have you seen those?
Yes.
So I brought my Metas to the surgery center and I was like, could you wear these when you're doing the procedure so I can see what you're doing? And he's like, are you sure you want to see it? And I'm like, totally, I want to see it. I want to see everything. And he wore them and he literally had a drill and he had an auger, a needle, a screw needle. And he went into my leg bone and then he unscrewed the drill and took the syringe of my cultured stem cells and attached that and stuck it right in my bone because the French studies show it's better. There's two different kinds of injections Jeff probably talked about. There's intra-articular, which is in the joint, and there's intraosseous, which is in the bone. He said that the studies in Europe show that intraosseous for regrowing things like ligaments works better than just putting it in the joints. The joint stuff helped heal all that ripped tissue, but the intraosseous is what makes the tendons, the ligaments grow again out of the bone. It's the restorative kind of thing. That was my journey, my thought process. That's what I want to spend my money on. Like, I don't want to spend my money on clothes and, stuff like that anymore, or jewelry or whatever. I want to spend my money on stem cell injections.
Yes. You're speaking my language. I love that you shared that story. I also want to go back to how you put these biohacks into different buckets and how one of them is budget, which makes me think of red light therapy. What are your thoughts on using red light on your genitals?
Yeah, well, I have a very, very good partnership and have for years with Joylux. It's funny too, because I met them at Dave Asprey's Upgrade Labs in Santa Monica. I was speaking there years ago, and one of the other speakers was showing this red light vagina device. It's photobiomodulation, intravaginal, so inside your vagina, photobiomodulation. It looks kind of like a sex toy because it also vibrates and it has warmth. But what it really is an FDA Class 2 vaginal restoration device that they primarily promote for incontinence. But what I love about it is, in addition to the vaginal estrogen and the FemiWave and things like that you can do, and taking nitric oxide supplementation, which is very important if you're over 40, the red light does many things. It stimulates the mitochondria of the vaginal mucosal lining. And what's really interesting is estrogen helps the microbiome, basically the bacteria of your vagina, create glycogen. Glycogen is the good sugar that the good bacteria eat. Women have a lot of UTIs and vaginal dysbiosis as they age when their estrogen drops. And a part of it is you want to use the red light to stimulate the thickening of that tissue. You want the estrogen to help bring in the thickening of the tissue because it gets thin. When it gets thin, you get painful sex, you get a loss of lubrication, not because the tissue makes the lubrication. The mechanism is actually blood flow to the pelvis, which is why I keep saying nitric oxide supplement, because when it's thin, it can't hold a lot of moisture. When it's thicker, it's spongy tissue and it holds more moisture and you get better lubrication. So the red light helps cell division, biogenesis of that tissue. The estrogen helps with the collagenation and the thickening of the tissue. The nitric oxide helps with the blood flow to the pelvic bowl because your vagina isn't a gland. It's not like the prostate, which is a muscle and a gland. The prostate actually makes the semen that mixes with the sperm. When you have an ejaculation as a male, the prostate squeezes and squirts out the semen. But the female body has vaginal mucosal lining. The thicker it is, the more moisture it can hold, but it's the blood flow seeping down. The plasma seeps through the many layers of the vaginal mucosal lining, and that's what makes us wet. Female ejaculation comes from blood plasma seeping in through the Skene's glands of that spongy urethral tissue. When you have a contraction, a pelvic contraction, it forces the fluid out of the urethra. So your pee-pee and your female ejaculation, they call it squirting in porn, but I prefer the words female ejaculation. It's a more respectful term for the natural thing that all women's bodies can do. Some women naturally ejaculate, but any woman can learn. And it's really I like to call it divine nectar. It is the release of our feminine waters. And it's a very nice type of orgasmic experience to have. There's 20 kinds of orgasms that the body can have, and you can learn how to do them all. I didn't know how to do any of them, and I learned them all, and I'm still learning. Number 20 is wild card. I always leave the possibility for more because with sex, there's always something more. What's great about the red light therapy with the vagina device is that there's a protocol. I like it for keeping my incontinence at bay, keeping my tissues thick, supporting the estrogen and the nitric oxide that I take. But I also will use it if I know I'm having a date with my husband. I will use it that morning because it's bringing in blood flow. It's bringing a lot of blood flow to the upper part of the vaginal canal, not just the lower part. My engorgement and pleasurable intercourse is increased from the vagina device as well.
I like the way you described all of that and went into detail. I have a question about nitric oxide, but before I get there, how do we learn to produce this divine nectar?
Don't you love that divine nectar? It's so precious, isn't it? I know. So it's called female ejaculation. If you go to femaleliquidorgasm.com, I've taught thousands and thousands of couples and women how to ejaculate, how to find your G-spot, how to activate it, how to do G-spot healing, how to do female ejaculation with fingers, tools, penises, everything. Female Liquid Orgasm is the program that teaches you how to do all of these things. They are just learned skills. It's good to know all the techniques. There's a lot of different techniques, and what you see on porn is only one little dumb thing. Have you ever heard of information cascade, which is basically like telephone tag, where one person says it and then everyone thinks it's true and the next person repeats it and the next person repeats it? If you're trying to figure out how to do female ejaculation by watching porn, you're really missing the spiritual aspects, the emotional aspects. It's more like a party trick. I don't like performative sex, which is what pornography is. Pornography is really there for people to masturbate to and things like that. What I like is heart-connected, passionate, conscious lovemaking techniques. A part of the reason why I like that is I really need very nurturing sex. I need a lot of heart connection in sex, and I want a ton of pleasure. When I have sex, I come pretty much the entire time I'm having sex from all different kinds of stimulation. I'm having all different kinds of orgasms. The G-spot orgasms, the female ejaculation is just one of the many kinds of orgasmic pleasure that I've taught my body how to do using orgasmic activation and orgasmic cross training. Learning how to ejaculate is actually a very easy, very straightforward thing with a series of steps and some knowledge.
Thank you so much for explaining that. I've been taking your nitric oxide supplement for 2.5 years.
Oh my gosh, that's so great.
Tell me why nitric oxide is so important.
My nitric oxide supplement is called Flow. It is a food-derived nitric oxide supplement. It's made primarily from citrulline, organic watermelon rind. That's where the most citrulline is. And it's a very, very good source of the nitrates that turn to nitrites that turn to nitric oxide in your body. Nitric oxide is a gaseous signaling molecule. Imagine you've seen those beautiful pictures of our vascular system, our veins, arteries, capillaries, all the little branches of the tree that goes all the way down to our toes and to our brain and out our fingertips. There's muscle tissue called endothelial tissue around, essentially is the coating of all of the vascular system. It has muscle tone to it. And the way we get blood to our brain when we're thinking, to our heart when we're exercising, to our genitals when we're making love, is our body squeezes our vascular system to push the blood to the places it needs to be. We don't have enough to be everywhere all the time. It's moving around constantly. The way that nitric oxide works is you have a salivary pump system that releases nitric oxide to move the blood around. But as we age, by the time we're 50, we have half the nitric oxide production we had when we were 20. The data from Dr. Nathan Bryan, who I'm a disciple of and have taken his training, he's kind of the nitric oxide scholar now. What he has shown through data is that our food supply no longer has the quantity of nitrates in it that it used to. Nitrates are not a bad thing. You think about them as like, oh, I don't want that in my bacon. But what they actually are is something that the bacteria in your mouth convert to nitrites, which go into your stomach, and your stomach converts the nitrites through stomach acid to nitric oxide, which is stored in your body for when you need to pump your blood around. So if you're low in nitric oxide, or you use acid blockers or proton pump inhibitors, or you use antibacterial mouthwash, or you don't eat your leafy greens and your beetroot, or all those things, the average American is getting like no nitric oxide. They're hurting themselves from every single direction, and they can't get erectile function. They can't get the blood into the penis or into the yoni. And so they're having diminished sexual function, diminished sensation, because the nerves are retracting, because the vascular system is retracting. So it's just like this slippery slide to this shitty existence where they can't even have sex. And then they just live in this platonic relationship. And you know the difference between a couple that's having hot, satisfying sex and a couple that's not having sex. The couple that's not having sex, they're cranky with each other. They're lazier. They're not moving around a lot. They're just watching a lot of TV. They're bitching at each other. They have more anxiety. They have less, their nervous systems aren't as good. They're not generating any oxytocin. Then you've got that hot couple having hot sex where they're like, what do you want to do this week? What do you want to learn this week? Can we find your G-spot? Can we release your divine nectar? Like when you're a couple and you're doing those fun things and you're eating healthy food and you're lighting up your brain like Nan Wise's MRIs and you're doing all your orgasmic cross training and you're co-regulating each other, rebooting your nervous systems, generating oxytocin, you are living an entirely different life than that couple that's basically just fading away.
I've heard you say that orgasms can make you younger. Is this true?
How do I look?
You look amazing, Susan.
I mean, there was a study done in Europe. It was only one study. 2,500 people were shown pictures of human beings between the ages of 18 and 80. It was called the Superyoung study, and they were asked to guess the age of the people they saw in the pictures. There was this group of people who looked 10 years younger than their cohorts. They could not figure out why this group of people looked 10 years younger than everyone else, their actual age. And they determined these were the people having intimate relations 3 times a week or more. It made them look 10 years younger than their peers. The longest longevity study is a study called the Dunedin PACE study. It's based in New Zealand, and it's a longevity study of a lot of different people. And basically what they said was there's 4 quadrants to longevity. There's grip strength, cognitive function, standing on one leg balance, and looking younger than your peers. Those 4 things are the predictors of longevity. the best predictors they have of longevity. The other longest study ever done was the Harvard study. It was all men, but it was a study that looked at longevity and said, I think it's like 80 something years old now, this study. The last guy who ran it said, full stop. The number one determinant of a long life is being in relationship. So even if you're not having intercourse, if you're in a relationship, it's keeping you younger and making you live longer. My proposition is have sex till the day you die. And by sex, I don't mean intercourse, but I want you to have intercourse. I want you to keep your genitals in such good shape that they last. I have had some followers, some fans reading my emails for the last 2 decades who are now in their 80s and 90s. Dan Barr emails me almost every day with something. Oh, I saw this article. Oh my God, I love what you wrote on your newsletter. He's 88 now. And he and his girlfriend, Anne, he's still telling me about the hot sex they're having. And you know that those older cohorts are having good sex. So there's no reason not to. The only reason not to is if you have a problem. And I always think anything can be fixed.
Susan, earlier you mentioned your newsletter that you've had for 20 years.
Yeah.
What are bedroom communication skills? And can you give us a few examples of how to start having those conversations?
Yes. Bedroom communication skills kind of go in what I would call an ascension model. There are some that are the foundations that if you try to start with the higher level stuff, you got to go back to the basics and get those in place. One of the fundamentals is it starts outside the bedroom. One of my books is called Relationship Magic. It's one of my I think it's one of my top selling books because I've been on television a lot and been interviewed on TV shows a lot. Basically what it does is it helps you understand your top 4 relationship values and your husband's top 4 relationship values. It's great if you're single, so you can tell people what it is you really need in a relationship to feel very happy, because you are going to be with someone who's a totally different person than you. And though you might have a lot of values matches, because you're 2 totally different people, what you want and what they want are going to be different. So what it does is it gets you to identify what it is you want, put some real points on it, like exactly what can your partner do to have you feel the feelings you want to feel in your relationship with them. That's the first thing, is I would work with that to know. Because when I go on TV, the way they tease the segment is they go, is the golden rule ruining your relationship or mucking up your marriage? Stay tuned. We have intimacy expert Susan Bratton coming up. We'll be right back after this commercial. And so basically the golden rule is do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. But the platinum rule is what I say you need to be playing, which is treat your partner the way they want to be treated, not the way you want to be treated. And when you start getting up every day and just focusing on the top 4 things your partner wants in a relationship with you, and they do the same for you, then you can go into the bedroom. And the next technique is the sexual soulmate pact. And the pact is, number 1, because men are, this is really, I'm going to speak in the like heterosexual couple perspective right now, but it works for everybody. But there's some generalities around a pair bonded male female that, number 1, if you give him feedback, he already thinks he's better than he is because he's testosterone dominant, makes him confident. That's one of the reasons I like to put testosterone on my clit, is not just because it makes it meaty, but because it gives me balls. I'm confident when I take testosterone. I really like the confidence. I also like having a little deeper voice. I like the tenor of my voice when I'm on testosterone. So because he's got natural testosterone, even though women have tons of testosterone, men have more, it makes them so confident that they just think they're doing a good job. They think they're doing a better job than they are. Women always think they're doing a worse job than they are. And you see that in the job market all the time. Somebody's going for the job, a woman's going for it, and she's not sure she's qualified. A man's going for it, and he thinks he's overqualified, and she's actually the more qualified one. It's just like, this is hormones. She doesn't want to tell him the feedback because she doesn't want him to get hurt. He can't imagine he's not doing a perfect job because he's just doing what he always does, and it worked last time, so it should work this time. That's an issue. You have to be able to say anything. It's teaching your partner to really be hungry for your feedback. But the other issue is that a lot of women say, I don't know what I'm wanting. I just know what I'm getting isn't it. I teach them how to know what they want by understanding that what they want is going to be different all the time. They're changing constantly. So they can't go on past data that's unreliable. They have to use what's called interoception. It's part of our senses. There's more than 6 senses. Interoception is, oh, I have gas. Oh, my big toe hurts. It's the felt sense of your body. It's not intuition. It's not the gut feel. It's the felt sense of your body. And you know what it is. It's too cold. That's too hard. I want it harder. I need more lube. Whatever it is, when you start to tune into your interoception and you have a partner who's like, just tell me what you need. I'm going to give it to you. My job here is to make you happy. What he wants is to be respected for a job well done. He wants to win. That's not what you enter into sex for at all. You enter into sex for worship, adoration, acceptance, encouragement, appreciation. You want very different things. Well, I think the sexual soulmate pact is number 2. And then number 3 is starting to really moan and make noise. People are very quiet. I have a book called The Dirty Talk. It's at dirtytalkbook.com. It's free. It's the 6 ways to talk dirty without feeling weird. It's pillow talk, sharing favorite frames, abnosing. There's all these different bedroom techniques that really get you communicating in a way that spills over into the rest of your relationship. It makes your whole relationship more juicy, more intimate, more honest, more vulnerable, more authentic. These are the things that benefit deepening of intimacy over time.
I love these examples that you're giving. It leads me into my next question, which is, tell me about tools in the bedroom.
Yeah. I've been saying the words orgasmic activation and orgasmic cross training a number of times during our conversation. And thanks for all these great questions. You really did your homework, Ashley. Thank you so much. You get the best out of me that way. And I appreciate your professionalism and your inquisitiveness, and your openness to just like, tell me everything. I can really feel that you're going to apply everything I'm saying. I mean, I know you are. And that's great. So remember when I talked about Nan's ladies in her MRI lighting up the different parts of the brain and how touching each of the different parts activated pleasure? Well, there was a study done, I think it was 41 women. Nurses conducted this study of 41 women and they touched them on different parts of their vulva and on their nipples and breasts. And they said, tell me what you feel when I touch you here. Tell me what you feel when I touch you here. I read all the verbatims and I netted it out. Depending on where they were touched, they felt shame, pain, numbness, or pleasure. 53% of women felt some pleasure when you touched the introital sphincter, the opening to their vagina, 40 approximately percent of them felt some pleasure when you touched their clitoral tip and shaft. And I thought to myself, that's fine. But that's not the conclusive information that more women find pleasure when you touch their vaginal opening than when you touch their clitoral structure. You hear other sexperts out there saying, it's not about the vagina, it's about the clit, which is also wrong. The point of all this really is that all the tissue is orgasmic. Your breasts, your nipples, your mouth, your lips, your tongue, your neck, your décolletage, your buns, your anus, every part of the vaginal, vulvovaginal, urogenital system feels good when it's touched with love, respect, heart connection, care. So the women who said, well, I don't really like it when anyone touches my clit, that feels numb or I feel shamed or what have you. It's literally because it's never been touched with the love, with a shame-free, loving touch. Orgasmic activation is what I've been doing for decades to my own body, which is I've just been one location after another, just bringing them online, taking them from numb, shame, pain to pleasure by pleasuring them. And I have done this through hot kissing, tons of breast play, tons of manual massage, yoni massage, expanded orgasm dates, intercourse, oral pleasuring, and using tools. That's where you get into orgasmic cross training. One of my other mentors, I've been very lucky to have a lot of mentors, Sherry Winston. She wrote what I think is one of the seminal books on women's arousal called The Woman's Anatomy of Arousal. I learned so much from her. And she was the one that taught me about orgasmic cross training. If it feels good when you touch your clitoris, then touch your clitoris while you're being penetrated so that that starts to feel good. And pretty soon you'll feel good being penetrated without even actually touching your clitoris, because if the whole thing's engorged, your clitoral body is literally wrapped around your vagina anyway. It's getting stimulated from the intercourse. You don't even need to touch the tip of the clit. You can if you want to. That's where I got the idea. I started learning all about sex toys. One of the brands that I really love, Fun Factory, Kristen Tribby, taught me there are basically categories of sex toys that stimulate different parts of the genital anatomy. There are 8 that work in the women's body and 4 that work in the male body. I've assembled a collection of the 8 toys you should have in your pleasure chest to orgasmically cross-train and activate and awaken and enliven and become orgasmic in every part, so that the slightest little touch gives you orgasm. When you know that your body has orgasmic response, that you don't have to have any stress over it all, you're going to come well, come a lot, come in a bunch of different ways. Sex just gets so much more satisfying and you become so much more confident. And then you start to move from being the passive receiver to being a little switchy and starting to take control of things. And that confidence just builds and builds and builds, and it expands your orgasmic potential. If you go to orgasmiccrosstraining.com, you will actually see the 8 tools that I recommend. And there's a couple of choices in multiple categories. It's the 8 categories and there's different ones in there. And the 4 for the male body, because your guy can be orgasmically cross-training too.
These are such good tips. Susan, what haven't I asked you that you'd like my listeners to know?
One last thing. I've been recommending a lube, and I've been saying the only thing I can tell you to use out there is organic avocado oil, refined organic avocado or jojoba oil, because pretty much all lubes, they're an FDA class 2 managed product line, and they have to have preservatives in them. And I don't want that stuff in my vaginal mucosal lining. Then I met this brand called Foria, Foria. I am now a spokesperson for them, and I've developed a pleasure protocol, and they've put together a bundle of their 3 products that work together synergistically. And what I love about them is the first one are these little suppositories called melts, M-E-L-T-S, melts. These are little cocoa butter that you pop one in your vagina, and then they have something called Awaken. Awaken is an arousal oil. That starts to activate the outside. So now you're activating the inside in your vagina. You're activating the outside. It starts to send pleasure signals to the brain through the endocannabinoid system. And then wonderful sex oil, which it's not technically a lubricant. It's for slide and glide. It's a sex oil because it's not considered a lubricant because it doesn't have all those nasty preservatives in it. I love these 3 things that work together synergistically, and I will talk to you after the show and get your address and send those to you, because I'd love for you to try them out. I think you will. If you've been taking Flow, good for you. And I think this is something that you might really enjoy.
Oh, I'm so excited. Well, Susan, you've given us a lot of resources. I'll make sure to put everything hyperlinked in the show notes so listeners know where to find you. Thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, and great questions.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed today's episode, a quick shout out on Instagram or leaving a review would make a positive difference. Or even better, share this podcast with someone you think might benefit from this information. You can get in touch with me on socials. I'm most active on Instagram. My handle is Ashley_Deely. Until next time. This podcast is presented for educational and exploratory purposes only. The published content is not intended to be used for diagnosing or treating any illnesses, disease, or disorders. Those responsible for this show disclaim any responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of this information presented by myself or my guests. Please consult with your healthcare provider before using any products or services referenced in this podcast. Episodes on the Welcome to Wellness podcast may at times cover sensitive topics, including, but not limited to, depression, suicide, 5G, nootropics, circumcision, birth control, the Women's Health Initiative, the use of plants medicine, abortion, geoengineering, terrorism, gender, AI, and sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You are advised to refrain from listening to this podcast if you are likely to be offended or adversely impacted by any of these topics. However, if these topics interest you, you just may have found your tribe. The information or opinions expressed on the Welcome to Wellness show are solely the views of the individuals involved and by no means represent absolute facts. Opinions expressed by the host and the guest can change at any time. The views of my guests are solely their views, and the Welcome to Wellness show does not accept responsibility for them. Any action you take based on the information contained within this podcast is strictly at your own risk. The Welcome to Wellness host, ASHLEYDEELEY, will not be liable for any losses or damages in connections with the use of this podcast. You should take all necessary steps to ascertain the information you receive in this podcast is correct and has been verified. None of the guests or contributors on the Welcome to Wellness podcast will be responsible for your use of the information contained therein. Under no circumstances will the Welcome to Wellness show or my affiliates, partners, suppliers, licenses, or guests appearing on the show be liable for any direct or indirect consequences or damages arising from your ability or inability to access this podcast. All intellectual property rights belong to me, ASHLEYDEELEY, and include, but are not limited to, the copyright and any other rights in the design. You are permitted to use the Welcome to Wellness podcast for personal use, but not for commercial use without license. You may not make recordings. If you breach these terms, you lose the right to the Welcome to Wellness podcast, and you must destroy or return any copies or recordings you've made. Guests on the Welcome to Wellness podcast may at times provide information or read extracts from third-party copyrighted work. The Welcome to Wellness podcast does not provide any medical or professional advice within these episodes and should not be used as a replacement for medical or clinical care. If you take any action or inaction as a result from the content you consume within the Welcome to Wellness podcast, this is based solely on your decision, and ASHLEYDEELEY and the Welcome to Wellness podcast hosts and my guests cannot be held responsible or liable for any of the consequences of such action or inaction. Thank you.